Coming up next on The Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to talk all things narcissism with an international expert. Her journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, we've all heard the term narcissist, but it's being thrown about more often now than ever before. And I have a theory. I mean, we're all growing up with social media, looking at ourselves on the computer screen all day. Why wouldn't there be more narcissists today than there were 50 years ago? To talk about that, Cindy Hyde. She's with Living Strong Counseling. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Well, I want you to share a little bit of your personal journey with us. How did you first become interested in this?
Well, I grew up in a very dysfunctional childhood. And ultimately, I started realizing that there could be mental health issues in my household. And then I ended up marrying somebody just like a parent that I had had. And so after that, I started researching to try to figure out what had happened to me, and started realizing and understanding that it was very plausible that both my parent and the person that I married could have been a personality disordered individual. And so, and the more I learned, the more it started becoming apparent that, you know, as I grew and healed and overcame, and it was really an overcoming, that I needed to help other women. And so I just felt called into this profession to try to help women overcome.
And the thing I'm told about narcissists is they're extremely charming and can be very crafty. So
they are very charming, yes, and very charismatic. You know, and there's those, though, that they call it covert nowadays. And so the covert are the more quiet type, but most of the time they're very grandiose, very overt, very image conscious, yeah.
Okay, so if you're dating a narcissist, he or she may not show their freak flag right off the top.
That's right.
But then they start to do little things to push your buttons. What are some common things?
So typically what that looks like, it'll start out and you'll feel like you won the lottery. Yeah. That you know, how did you get so fortunate to meet such a great person? And then about mid-relationship is where the devaluing starts. So they start chipping away at your self-esteem, your self-worth, and before you know it, you're starting to believe those things. And so that's kind of how it gets started, and then it just escalates over time.
We're going to pull up your website because I can't think of a more timely time for you to be in this category. You were telling me like 1 out of 5 people on the planet?
1 out of 5 people are personality disordered. And one of the things I tell people is that it's never just narcissism. And the reason for that is it's because it's a cluster B personality disorder. And what that means, cluster means more than one. And so it can oftentimes overlap with sociopath, psychopath, borderline personality disorder, and histrionics. And so most of the time when clients come out of these situations, they're like, I feel like I've been going crazy.
Wow.
And that's true. They have, because they've been with somebody that had all of these disorders going on.
Okay, so can narcissists be rehabilitated?
That is a no. And the reason for that is because 97% of that population are born that way, which means there can be no change. And so if you were to compare it with somebody that was born on the spectrum or autistic, that person at the end of their life will still be autistic.
Yes.
And it's the same thing if somebody's born personality disordered. At the end of their life, they will be personality disordered. 3% of that population, it's environmental, which basically means that they had severe trauma at a very early age and their neural pathways were changed. So because of that, only 1% of that 3% has any ability at all to change. So that's why it's so hard. Like a lot of people find themselves staying in these relationships too long. And the reason for that is they want to believe that nice love bombing person that they started with, and then at the end, that's, the change never happens. And so they hold on to hoping for change.
Okay, so even if a narcissist is in a marriage and they're doing marriage counseling and the narcissist becomes aware that he or she is the problem.
They don't become aware of that. No, they don't ever think they're the problem. And I actually don't recommend marriage counseling if a client feels like they're in a relationship with a personality disordered person. And the reason for that is they can go into marriage counseling and get abused because the personality disordered person is so charismatic that they can fool the therapist. And not to say that all therapists can be fooled, a lot can't, but at the same time, it happens all the time.
You're very popular on podcasts, so let's go ahead and show some video from a recent podcast that you did, and we're going to give a shout out to Mark.
Yes.
So tell me about Mark.
Yeah, so Mark Scroggins is a Dallas family law attorney, and he's quite good. And he does a podcast called Reclamation Transformation. I don't know why he named it that. It's a hard name to say. But yes, so he invited me on quite a few times, and I was a common guest on his show. And we talked about everything from personality disorder to sex addiction, which is also very common with a personality disordered individual. So
let's give some advice to parents so that they're not raising another generation of narcissists. So what are some things that parents do to kind of feed into narcissism?
Right. Yeah. And so enmeshment, when they become so enmeshed with the child that the child doesn't learn a healthy independence, instead they learn an entitled independence. And so to not raise your children where they feel entitled to special treatment, because that is one of the things. And two, if you're in a dysfunctional house, that needs to stop, because the trauma at an early age can also create narcissism.
What's your favorite story, without naming the client? What's your favorite success story?
I had a lot of my clients come in what's called withdrawal, and they are very still attached to the personality disordered individual. They still think they love this person who's abused them. And so this client comes in, she's a mess, and it takes quite a long time. It took about close to a year to even get her through the withdrawal.
Wow.
And finally, she got through that piece of it. And now she's about to remarry a wonderful person. And he's absolutely not personality disordered, and she's happy and glowing, and she's actually become a divorce coach.
Wow.
And so she's working with individuals trying to navigate high conflict divorces and custody situations, because she went through that with her pathological person.
Sure. Yeah. Cindy is also a prolific blogger. We're going to show some of her recent blogs. Tell us how you choose your topics.
Typically, sometimes my clients help me choose them. Somebody will come in and I'll think, oh, I need to write about that. I've forgotten about that topic. So typically that's where it comes from, or it's just something that was on my heart to do. And so that's where it comes from.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk about gaslighting, because it's been a phrase that has become very popular in the last few years. Let's define it first. What is gaslighting?
Well, I tell clients all the time, and it's where somebody shifts your reality. So if I said to you, Jeff, I love your black jacket, and you said, oh no, Cindy, this jacket is blue-gray. And I said, no, Jeff, you need to get your eyes checked. I think you're colorblind, and that jacket is black. And you go, oh, maybe it is. Maybe I do need to get my eyes checked. You just bought my reality that was not true, and did not know what your truth was, which was that your jacket was blue-gray.
Wow.
And so that's gaslighting in a nutshell. But what I tell clients, if you're confused all the time, you're being gaslit. So a lot of times they'll say, I didn't say that. That's not, I don't remember. And so the client stays very confused. And so typically that's gaslighting.
And a narcissist typically can't lose an argument, can he or she?
They will not lose an argument. And so there's no good way to try. You know, a lot of clients will come in and say, well, my last therapist told me to have boundaries. And I'm like, boundaries aren't going to work with this type of person. And so it's really difficult because the client wants to have a say, but you can't have a reasonable conversation with this type of person.
Or they let you win, but then they give you the silent treatment.
And that's punishment. So typically they will find a way to punish, or they'll try to provoke you into a bigger fight. And so, you know, I've had clients that were in a fight over something menial for 3 weeks. Because it just couldn't end because the narcissist had to keep going with it.
Okay, in the time that we have left, why don't you look into that camera on the left, Cindy, talk to the person who is watching this saying to themselves, I think I need Cindy.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the thing is if you're in a relationship that you wake up every day and you fear that you're going to be walking on eggshells, or you stiffen up when that person walks into a room, then very likely you are in a psychologically pathological relationship. And there is hope, and you can get out, and you can have a very happy and wonderful life if you choose it. I know it's hard because your brain says he's good, he's bad, I love him, I hate him. But at the same time, you deserve joy in your life. And if you're waking up every morning and there is no joy, then you need to see somebody professionally to try to find that joy. So.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your heart with the world. We're going to end with her website, which is livingstrongcounseling.com. The great Cindy Hyde. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.